everybody. I'm Matt Valley. Welcome to episode number 153 of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories, side gigs of the insights, and analytics pros that you trust. Very excited about today's episode. It's with an old friend and colleague, Tim Spenny. We met, must be like 14 years ago when we were both working at GfK, now known as NIQ. After that, I know he spent several years at Ipsos in senior roles, global account roles. But what's really cool is he joined a company that you've probably heard of called Conveo, helping to define the future of insights utilizing AI. Doing really cool stuff, growing really fast. What's cool is that really good researchers involved in helping to develop it, rather than just entirely from the outside tech world. But very exciting company. Cool stuff. Now, one thing I learned about Tim that for some reason we never talked about this when we worked together at GfK, but I learned all of a sudden that Tim used to play in bands all around Chicago, which is really cool. I had no idea he was a musician. So we've got some stories to swap and some ground to cover. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt. It's a real honor and pleasure to be with you. It's sort of on the bucket list to be on the pod. So appreciate you having me.
I'll take it. I'll take it. That's very cool. Very, very cool. All right. So let's start with how you first got into insights in the first place. Everybody's got a story. Let's hear yours.
Sure. I was working for a boutique strategy firm outside of Chicago called Radin Financial Group. They're no longer around. But what we did there is we were the marketing group or marketing department for banks, community banks and credit unions that couldn't really afford their own marketing team. So we were their outsourced team. And then what they did is they were able to take a feed of the credit union or commercial community bank um, data that they would feed into the governing body, and we would analyze that data. So we created an API. This is way back when, before even GfK times, and we'd analyze that and compare those institutions to each other. So I became what's called a strategic advisor. I would have a big booklet like this, full of 350 pages of just charts and graphs, basically, with no narrative. And I would have to go into a bank or a credit union and say, hey, this is your performance. This is how you compare to like institutions. Here's a bunch of best practices and recommendations. And oh, by the way, if you want us to analyze your auto portfolio or your credit card portfolio or whatever, we can do that as an add-on and give you even more insights. So it really cut my teeth on, literally using just data, no pictures, no, nothing to tell a story, and then, move an institution's performance. So these books were created every 6 months, and it was great to see, the recommendations move the needle. I got a lot of joy
Yeah.
out of that, and it was really rewarding to work with these executive teams, to help them be more successful. And from there, I just got into market research and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, super cool. So then you worked for the biggies, right? GfK and Ipsos, and now you've gone the other direction. So tell us a little bit about joining Conveo, what you're doing there, and
Yeah.
how that's going so far.
I just connect a couple dots here. So, Radin Group was bought by Open Solutions, who were then bought by Fiserv. So they still live inside of Fiserv. I went on to go to Euromonitor, then Afanova. Afanova was also bought by Nielsen, and then I ended up at GfK.
Yes.
Yeah, what drew me to all these companies, though, if you think about what Euromonitor does, market sizing and so forth, you think about what Afanova did, concept testing. I was just drawn to, really sexy methodologies to solve problems and answer business questions. So
Yeah.
Afanova had a really sexy technology, but I was always losing to the big boys who had this giant tool belt of research methodologies that they could offer, like a GfK. They kept coming up, and I was losing to them. And I thought, wow, maybe I'll seek them out. And sure enough, I was able to get a role there, managing large relationships at GfK. So I did that for a number of years until, they were sold to Ipsos and then eventually NIQ.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you were part of that. That's what explains the shift from GfK to Ipsos was that piece of the business was acquired by Ipsos, right?
It sure was. Yeah, about 1,000 people. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. I almost forgot about that. That was
Yeah.
the first domino to fall before Nielsen came in and bought them.
Yeah, private equity came in and took a look at GfK and figured out what they want to do with them. So,
Yeah, yeah. That is whole story. That is whole story.
mhm.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, that takes us through Ipsos and everything, but now tell us about Conveo.
Yeah, so I left Ipsos in August, took a little time off. I was doing consulting and I was really working within AI. I took a course at MIT. I was consulting a couple friends who had AI startups. They're popping up everywhere. And sure enough, someone from Conveo reached out to me who I had worked with at Ipsos. And the more I looked, the more interested I was. You know, it, the initial value prop of something like a Conveo is really centered on being able to do AI moderated interviews at scale. So this is a tool that sits on a researcher's desktop that allows them to design, launch and field and analyze IDIs using AI. So, we all know that qualitative research is relatively painful. It's slow. It's costs a lot. And but at the same time, it's the richest source of data. Hearing directly from your audience about, a product or a brand or a topic or a category is the richest data that you can get. But it was always cost prohibitive, time prohibitive. If you're looking at the budget, sometimes it was the first thing to get cut. So Conveo is solving for that, and that was really compelling to me. But I joined in February, the last week in February, and I can tell you since then, my mindset about this new category that's been created with this technology has completely changed. It's moving so quickly, and the ways that this methodology are being used to serve stakeholders it's incredible.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, very exciting. It is really interesting to see. Just in my observation is, kind of growing up in this industry as well. One of the huge barriers was the fact that qualitative, you've got all this unstructured data, right, which was extremely
Right.
difficult
Hmm.
to work with, especially with any kind of scale. So quantitative data was, by comparison, much easier data to get your arms around. Qualitative was messy and slow.
Hmm.
But it feels like it's completely flipped with AI and how well it deals with text data, and that seems to be part of why qualitative has been one of the real early use cases that's gotten a lot of traction.
Yeah, if you look at how AI entered into the market research space, there's kind of two branches, right? One is synthetic data, where a lot of companies are investing in creating digital twins and using that as an efficient way to be able to conduct survey research and so forth. And then the other is this AI moderation. And there's a number of players that are in this space of AI moderated interviews. What was really attractive to me about Conveo is just the way that it's being applied. So again, you think about being able to do asynchronous, multi-market studies all at the same time in different languages, typically it's 10x faster and less expensive. And that's a great starting point for a value prop. But when the use cases started to develop across the clients that we were working with, you're talking about being able to do UX research, deep ethnographies at scale. You're able to conduct shop-alongs or even mystery shopping. You're able to do iterative concept or sprints and creative sprints. And then if you get on the far end of the adoption curve with this technology, partners of ours are starting to leave it on all the time. And this is a really, really interesting use case because what it allows companies and brands to do is create a data moat and an intelligence layer around a category or a brand or channels or a trend and know what they know. The thing that we used to say about quant and qual is you don't learn anything from quant, you're just validating it. And if you really want to learn something, go out and do qual, right? So this allows you to continuously learn. And so it's a really powerful tool that is turning into an operating system for companies that then are able to, understand what they know, tap and source into this knowledge base that they know, learn on top of that. So they're not running a bunch of ad hoc studies all over that aren't connected. They're creating this center of gravity, the single source of truth, and a repository of a true customer voice.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's very exciting stuff. So now let's talk rock and roll, Tim.
Yes, let's do it.
Hear the story. Why are you holding out on me?
Well, I mean, look, I was in college. I thought one of the funnest things I could do was be in a cover band, and that's what I did. It was very, very fun, playing parties and being in college way back when before cell phones, it was a really good time. And then, I left university and ended up in Chicago. And the friends that I was playing music with, we scattered about, but we were, in this large community. And Chicago at the time was just a great place to be a young band because they had, different levels that you could play at. So this venue is if you're brand new, this one is you're building your audience, and then you kind of work your way up to, bigger venues. So we used to play, like the Double Door, which is a great place. All the greats have played Double Door, the Rolling Stones. I mean, just every band you can imagine. Yeah, it's no longer there. I think it turned into a Yeti store, which is just like super sad. But nonetheless, it was a great venue for many, many years. So I was in a number of different bands. My friends were all in bands, and we would just play around and put on these really great shows. It was super fun.
Now, where did your interest in, because you played guitar and you sang, is that right?
Yeah, wrote songs, played guitar, sang. Yep, led a few bands. Yep.
Where did that interest originally come from?
I always was interested in music, and when I was in high school before college, I had friends that played music, but I didn't know it was for me. And then when I was in college, I was around people who were playing music, and I just picked it up, and I sort of had a knack for it. I was self-taught. I mean, I did take a few lessons here and there, but mostly, if you're playing a guitar, this is pre-YouTube, right, and everything, you'd have to actually buy a book of tabs or something to be able to know a song. But it was really fun just connecting with my friends and then playing parties, and it got a hold of me. It was a passion that I had.
Super cool. All right, two quick questions on that. Number
Sure.
one, what was your favorite song to cover?
Yeah, we used to do a medley of a Beastie Boys song called Rhymin' and Stealin', which was really fun. And if you listen to that song, you'll hear that the guitar riff in there is from a Black Sabbath song called Sweet Leaf. So
Yes.
we used to go from in between Rhymin' and Stealin' into Sweet Leaf, and we would do sort of a reggae rock sort of medley in between those. And that was probably the favorite song that we played ever, more so than the original songs we were writing or anything else. It was a real crowd favorite. So it was really, really fun.
Awesome. Okay, so last question. Any other interesting bands that you played with, or maybe what your favorite club was to play in Chicago? Best
Yeah.
story. Give us some flavor.
Yeah. Okay, I got a good one. So we played a bunch of venues in Chicago: Thurston, Subterranean, Double Door, Phyllis's.
Yeah.
There was Big Horse. There was just a ton of venues. But one thing we used to do every year was put on a Halloween show. So we'd ask all of our friends that were in bands to dress up as other bands and play. So the band that I was in dressed up as a Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson cover band, where
Yeah.
we were playing punk rock versions. And the other guy in my band had long blonde hair, so he'd braid it like Willie Nelson. And then we would just play those songs really fast and really fun, like punk rock versions. And the name of the band was Cashed. And so, another band dressed up like Kiss, another band dressed up as a band called Headcase, where they just put empty beer cases on their head and cut eye holes out and play their instruments. And this would sell out the Subterranean. I mean, we'd have 300 people there. It was on Halloween and everybody's dressed up. It was super good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Do you still play it all?
I play a bit. Yeah, I have a couple of guitars over here on the wall, and I'll tinker around and get them out every once in a while for sure.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Awesome. So let me ask, it sounds like it's just something casual that you picked up, but there's something about performance, right? I'm curious to know, is there anything that you sort of learned from your experience playing music that you've applied to your professional career?
Oh boy, being in a band will teach you a lot of things. It'll teach you how to, collaborate and manage people's personalities and egos. It'll help you be in front of an audience. It'll help you be an original thinker. It really gets the creative juices flowing. It teaches you how to hustle because if you want to be a band and be seen and be
Yes.
heard, you definitely have to hustle. So although it seems just like fun, I mean, there are a lot of skills that I use in everyday life that came from my experiences playing in bands for over 10 years.
Yeah, I love that. I love the point about the hustle.
It's just such a hustle. Uh,
I'm still playing
yeah,
Dallas, and so. it's a different hustle. It's like you're not driving around, you're stapling flyers up to telephone poles.
Hmm.
But it's a different hustle, but it's a hustle nonetheless.
Yeah, you have to practice, you have to load in, you have to get gigs, you have to advertise and market, you have to load out, you have to, all the setup and just keeping everything going is it's definitely a bit of work, but it seems like it's really fun for you. You're still doing it, so
I'm still doing it, still paying.
kudos to you. Yeah.
I just had last weekend, I just had my best ever paying gig. I'm not going to say what I made for it, but
Yeah,
in all these years of playing, it was my best paying gig. So thank
that's amazing.
not choose it as my career.
Yeah, it's a tough road. It's a tough road for most. Only a few make it big, so.
Yes, indeed. Okay, cool. So back to insights.
Mhm.
I know that like Conveo's at the bleeding edge of this.
Yeah.
Uh, but put on your forecasting hat here. You're looking out into the future. Um, it's murky, but what do you see out there for insights and understanding consumers?
Yeah, I mean, there's some indicators, right? This ability and new category to blend AI moderated interviews with quantitative methodologies, I think is really interesting and has a lot of legs to be, a table stake in the future. So we recently launched Max Diff, where respondents are put through an exercise where they're choosing the attribute they like the most and the one they like the least, right? And so they go through a battery of questions, and then what the AI mod will do at the end is say, hey, why did you like this one? What was so appealing? And it'll probe. And why didn't you like this one? And probe and find out the drivers and reasoning behind that. And then in the middle, it will rotate, the attributes that weren't chosen as most or least. And so we get a good utility score and a preference score on every attribute. I mean, doing that is brand new. I've been around MaxDiff forever, being in financial services and doing card research and so forth, and financial banking research. They're always trying to differentiate through their features and benefits. So this is a huge step forward, and I think that more quant methodologies will be able to be integrated within an AI moderated platform like Conveo in the future. So think about things like conjoint and brand tracking and experience tracking and funnel analysis and right now we're able to do monadic and monadic sequential and max diff and open and closed end questions. But the future, I think, is going to hold a lot more functionality within the system. And that's super exciting because it creates this operating system that empowers researchers to do more better. And it also allows this center of gravity to be created as you do cross project analysis and you're creating a moat of data and intelligence layer. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I love that. I love that. Cool. All right, so Tim, big broad question for you here. This is a podcast, right? It's media. I'm interested to know what media is earning your time these days, either for insight, inspiration, or enjoyment. Personal, professional. Big broad question. What does your media diet look like?
Yeah, I don't watch much TV. Every once in a while, a series will catch my attention, but it's few and far between. What I mostly do is listen to podcast. I just really the audio part of it, not even the video. And that's why it was an honor and a bucket list item to be on this podcast because I'm such a big listener. So think about all the big ones, right? Certainly the Rogan and the Jesse Michaels, but there's some others that I listen to that I think are really interesting, like a Micah Hanks or there's like Danny Jones. There's a bunch of these. Try not to go down the conspiracy road too far, but a lot of them have a ton of educational aspects to them. There's a really great business one called Acquired. That's fantastic
Okay.
for understanding business. Yeah. And I started getting into podcasts because I had trouble sleeping. And so I was listening to like data science podcast and, these really technical podcasts, and I would fall asleep right away and it just stuck. And now I'm listening to them nonstop. So
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's really funny. I started listening to like, the murder shows. I would listen to those.
right, right. I remember when those podcasts are really big. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I would do it
Mhm.
just I would
True
follow.
crime.
But I found out that millions of people do the same thing. So it's
Hmm.
it's definitely a not even a niche use case. It's like a prime use case. So it's interesting and
Yeah.
just worried
It's
about.
I mean, it really speaks to long form conversations being, so valuable. I know everybody's has this short attention span now, but long form conversations for me to hear someone really be able to talk through, their concept or their thinking is, I mean, it's fascinating to me. So,
Yeah, and it's a little bit unexpected. There's so much about the short-term attention span and all this
Mhm.
stuff, but podcasts at long form content, there's such a huge demand for it still. It's
Agreed. Yeah,
so important. Cool. All right. It is all about rock and roll at the end of the day, Tim.
let's hear it.
I know you shared, maybe I'm picking up some clues about what this might be based on, some of the songs you used to cover in your bands.
Yeah.
Okay, you're stranded on a desert island, Tim. You have three albums, three records of your choosing to keep you company for the rest of your days. What are they?
Yeah, so I'm a big desert rock fan. So the first self-titled album from Queens of the Stone Age has been a mainstay in my rotation for over 20 years. I love that record. And then a newer band that I really like from Alaska is Portugal the Man. So they have a really great album, Mountain in the Sky. I think that's the name of the album. Pretty close. And then, of course, if you're going to be on a desert island, around my house on Sunday mornings when we're cooking breakfast and sort of clean up around the house, we always put reggae on vinyl. So I'd be remiss if I didn't include, Bob Marley Exodus on there because it's just
Yeah.
such, every song is just so good and you can listen to it over and over. So,
So some interesting observations. I do need to update the quantitative data I have on this question, right? So over
okay.
150 episodes,
Yeah.
three mentions per episode. Queens of the Stone Age, I'm pretty sure is first time mention. Well, I
Oh, nice.
personally, they're so creative, just an awesome band. Portugal the Man, also a first mention,
Mm,
although I heard them a lot. Our public radio station here in Dallas, Texas,
mm,
plays Portugal the Man a lot, so familiar with
yeah,
all of their newer stuff. Now, the last one, reggae. That is a top 10 mention I know for sure in the
I
market
believe
research
it.
community. So,
Yeah.
so great choice.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you. I love the feedback on where I fall within the distribution. That's
We'll
it's very
get the new
good.
list published soon, and you can have a look and see, what this industry is listening to on a desert island.
That's great. Yeah.
Super cool, Tim. Thanks so much. It's great to catch up. Of course, hope to see
Always.
you at a conference again soon. I know you've been doing the circuit a bit, so hope to see
Yeah.
you somewhere. So maybe we share a pint, talk
Yes.
rock and roll.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.